Since this thing first dropped, Garchomp has been a menace to society. It's one of those Pokemon that's an absolute GOAT no matter which generation you're playing in, and it's really no surprise either. Its Dragon Ground typing is great, and its stats make it a menace. Not only does it have good bulk and speed with a unique 102 speed tier, but it also gets 130 attack. However, today I'm going to bust out the surprise special attack in Chomp with that base 80 special attack instead. The great part about a Pokemon like Garchomp is that it immediately comes off as a physical attacker, so we can use that to our advantage, and it's got a really cool move pool for this. If we slap on a choice specs to boost up our special attack, this fella's actually going to hit surprisingly hard. First of all, we've got Stab and Draco Meteor, and since this move's a 130 power nuke, I mean, it's just going to hit hard regardless. Then it's got Earth Power because obviously we need some Ground Stab, but then we can bust out Fire Blast. This should allow us to really catch things by surprise. Mainly Pokemon like Corviknight switch-ins, which usually have a favorable matchup and then just get burnt to a crisp. Thanksgiving turkey style. And to round it off, we've got Surf, because people are going to be like, the hell, this thing can surf? I mean, it is a shark, I guess. So that's the plan with Special Chomp. It's definitely not ideal, but it's way more fun to bust out less predictable builds, and today it's time to get the Specs Garchomp going. Look, sometimes you just find a Garchomp that has no interest in chomping, so we basically just throw some glasses on the guy and call it a day. Who needs base 130 physical attack when you can instead have a nice, beautiful base 80 special? And, you know, that's what we're working with today. If that sounds like a fun time to you, consider hitting that subscribe button. I'm always doing weird Pokemon shenanigans over here, and we have a good time with it. Now with that, let's go ahead and just jump into the match. All right, so my opponent has a really cool kind of Gen 7 Alola themed team, and as I lead off with the Toucannon, I decided to go with the Swampert. Now, here's the situation. I just muscle memory a Stealth Rock on this turn 1. I'm not even gonna lie. Immediately as I click that, I realized that I'm about to be shot 9 times by a Bullet Seed. And, you know, that's exactly what happens. They do have the Bullet Seed. This thing's got the skill link. It will be able to easily just get the 4 hits and take me out. And honestly, I should have known. I've used Toucannon plenty in the past, and every time they have Bullet Seed. So I basically, you know, I start the game off 5-6. Not the greatest of starts. However, everything's fine. I don't get my Stealth Rock up that way, but what does happen now is it allows me to go into the Garchomp, and I can just angrily fire off a Draco Meteor. Now, here's the fun part. They end up going for a Beak Blast. That's a 2-turn move where they first heat up their beak. If I make physical contact, I get burnt. However, luckily for me, this Garchomp has no intentions of ever making contact with anything. I can drop a Draco that does just straight up knock the thing out. And while the Toucannon did get me on one, at least now the battlefield is evened out and that thing can enjoy some Fruit Loops in hell. Anyway, as they now can switch into a Primarina, that is not ideal for me because I, you know, am choice specsed into Draco Meteor. At this point, they probably know that I am specs on the thing to have enough to knock that thing out, but I can make a switch. I can only really go into the Rotom Wash. Now, the problem with that is a Moonblast does a ton, you know, just... I think Moonblast does more damage if you're playing at nighttime. That does a lot. It's not quite choice specs, but as I am more physical, that is definitely going to hurt. Now, I can at least pressure this thing with some electric. I figure if they want to switch into the Palisand, I then can just Hydro Pump it. So it's not a great answer. As I go for the Volt Switch, they end up swapping out here, and in comes old Long Leg. So I get the Volt Switch. It is going to allow me a nice little pivot here into whatever I want. I don't know exactly what this Serena wants to do. Serena, whatever the hell her name is, she's over here looking thick as hell and kind of threatening. Now, looking at my options, I decide, you know what? I can just go into Garchomp. The thing about this is, I feel like I kind of lure this into wanting to click a triple Axle. And while I could Terra, I also, if I connect on a Fire Blast, just get a knockout. So that's what I'm going to go for. I go for the Fire Blast. They do stay in. Garchomp is fast as hell. A Fire Blast connects and just roast that thing over the old campfire. So that's another knockout for the Chomp. And Fire Blast is one of the most satisfying things ever when you can get it to work. So, as I am stuck into the Fire Blast, they can now go into the Salazzle, who, you know, just is able to be annoying that I can't, you know, click an Earth Power on it because that would be nice. But I have to switch here. I want to reset the Garchomp. I decided to go into the Rotom Wash just because I'm like, I don't really know what they click here. So, it ends up being the Toxic. I kind of go into the washing machine essentially as a sack because now I kind of figure if they obviously outspeed, this thing's stanced up and fast as hell. So... they probably are able to get a knockout here. At least it's going to be close. After I take some poison, I'm about half. So I'm like, you know what? Maybe there is a shot that I could live one and get a big ol' Hydro Pump off. That would be quite satisfying. I just throw a pump out anyway just to see what happens. Pause. And as they go for the Sludge Bomb, I live it with 1, which is ridiculous. I honestly did not expect that. But that now allows me to get off the Hydro Pump, and then I get a little Blue Ball because it lives with a freaking Focus Sash. which is annoying, but it's fine. At least I connected on the Hydro Pump. We are thankful. RNG gods, I'm not ungrateful. I do thank you for connecting now. Now, unfortunately, as I get some leftovers, the poison is going to be able to knock me out. However, in this situation, I got it down to 1. And you know who can take any attack from a Salazzle ever is our freaking boy Chomp out here. It continues to be hammer time because I'm gonna bring in the last with the glasses. Now, I figure at this point they do have the option to switch into Primarina, which is fine. I'm just gonna go for a Specs Earth Power regardless. If that's what they want to do, I'm fine with it. Turns out, however, they go for the Endeavor, which now makes a whole lot of sense as to why they're Focus Sash, because, you know, that knocks me down to 1 HP, and just like that, Chomp is out here wounded. But they're even more wounded because they do get knocked out by the Rough Skin there. So that's kind of funny. Rough Skin always coming in clutch, and you need it most. Doesn't really matter because it would have died anyway, but at least we take care of the Salazzle the old-fashioned way, and now they can go into a free revenge switch, which is, of course, going to be that Primarina. This Primarina is kind of the primary problem I'm going to have to deal with. I truly still just don't have a whole lot to do to this thing, especially with Rotom Wash gone. So I decided at this point I can go into Bisharp. Bisharp can take an attack here as they go for just the straight up Moonblast. It is going to do over half even through the Eviolite, but check it out, that drops my special attack, which is therefore activates freaking Defiant, which is not something I accounted for there, but we will absolutely take it because now I can go for a nice little neutral Iron Head, and with that attack boost, it's going to allow me to knock the thing out. So I was honestly going into this just to get an Iron Head off for Chip, and then I could figure out another way around it, but you know, that we will take it. Defiant's one of those abilities that sometimes you just catch a random stat drop and it really just helps you out. So now they go into the Palisand. They're down to 2 Mons left. It's going to be the Palisand along with a Minior, which is scary. So first of all, I obviously have the Throat Chop super effective hit here. I'm going to absolutely go for it, but they are going to bust out the late game Terra. I've been kind of afraid of the Terra. I've been almost terrified, one would say. God damn. Someone's got to take my microphone from me. Anyway, they go for the Terra Grass, which allows them to live the Throat Chop. It does do it some decent chip, but now they can finish me off with an Earth Power. Down goes the Bisharp, but a job well done by that thing. And now honestly, I'm still a little bit afraid of what's going to happen here because of the fact that their final mon in the back being Minior. That thing is an incredible sweeper, and especially in the late game. So I've got to really play my cards right here. Now, first of all, what I can do is go into the Garchomp. I was honestly kind of hoping that they didn't Grass Terra here because that would allow me to Surf it and knock it out and then lock myself into Surf for the Minior. However, at least I have the Fire Blast. I connect on another Fire Blast that's going to take care of the now Grass type Sandcastle and chalk another one down for the special Chomp, baby, that's going to be able to take care of that. However, the problem becomes now I'm locked into Fire Blast, and this is going to be a little bit scary because as Minior comes in, it's going to want to Shell Smash here and try to sweep the late game. So first of all, it activates its shields down. That puts it into like Comet form. And this is kind of it's a very interesting late game because I decide I have to go for another Fire Blast. Reason for that is if this thing is Focus Sash, I need to break that. Absolutely. It's probably going to be White Herb, but I need to. I do connect on another Fire Blast, which is crazy. They do go for that Shell Smash as expected. And now that's going to go ahead and double their offenses along with the speed. And this little floating pebble is frightening. So here's the thing though, since I haven't gotten it to below half HP, it is still going to remain in Comet form. Now, the interesting part about Minior is that it changes forms, right? So as long as it's in this form with its shields up, since it has all that rock matter on him, it's much slower, right? It's at base 60 speed at this point. Now, it did get a Shell Smash off, however, so it does have that speed doubled. But what I can do here is, as a last-ditch effort, I can go Focus Sash Rabombi. Now, we did see the White Herb activate. It's surely going to go ahead and just click an Acrobatics here. Now, while I do not have enough damage to knock it out since it's in that defensive form, while it's in its shields up, it does have higher defense but lower speed. I honestly can use this to my advantage. What I can do here is click a Quiver Dance, and the idea is that they Acrobatics me down to 1 HP. After a Quiver Dance, since this thing, it has just that base 60 speed, while that even is doubled, after my base 124 speed ass gets a Quiver Dance up, I should still be faster. So they go for the Acrobatics, is going to knock me down to that Sash. And after I get this Quiver Dance up, now I should be faster because of the fact that we did not get this thing, into low enough health to be Fast Boy. We are now going to be able to outspeed it. And now, as I can go for a Moonblast at +1 special attack, I'm thinking we should be able to get a kill here. It does just have enough, even though they negated their defense drop with the White Herb. That is going to be the end of the game. And the Rabombi absolutely clutches it the hell out. Only fitting that my Gen 7 Mon is able to finish the job there. So that was a really close and crazy game against a really cool team. And that's going to be the end of game number 1. But that's going to bring us into game number 2 because we're having a fun time. We're hacking around. And as always, look, if you're still listening or still watching, I appreciate you. If you are still here, make sure to hit that like button. It really does help out the channel, and I appreciate it. And I appreciate you. And with that, let's go ahead and just jump into the match against a very scary squad. All right, so I wasn't really sure who they were going to want to lead off with. Now, it turns out to be the Latios. And as I go Swampert, I feel relatively safe as a Swampert. Not going to be bullet seeded, thank God. And I should be able to get my Stealth Rock up. So I figure Latios is probably just here for a flip turn lead, kind of see how things are going. I'm just going to throw some Stealth Rock and have myself a nice little swampy time over here. At least I almost want to click the knockoff, but I'm like, no, I'm just going to play it safe. So they do end up going ahead and just hard switching here. So no flip turn, which is one thing that Latios got to buff it this generation with flip turn, a nice little pivot on the thing, but they just hard switch. And as they decide to go into the Passimian, I'm kind of like worried, but also I don't think this thing has much to really do to me. I kind of get in my own head a little bit. I'm thinking, does this thing have grass coverage? I don't think it does. He kind of looks grassy. I don't think it does. I go for a flip turn here. As it turns out, they just go for the knockoff. So they get rid of my leftovers before I'm even able to take a bite, which is rude. Like the roommate taking your leftovers from the fridge before you get to them. I go for the flip turn here. It turns out to be Rocky Helmet Passimian. So this thing's like, never let them know your next move. Rocky Helmet Passimian is crazy. I get the flip turn pivot off, and now I can go into whatever I want. And I'm like, why not just the chomp? So the idea initially is now I can just get a big Draco Meteor off. It should be, if it's like Rocky Helmet, I'm thinking maybe it's physical, but then I'm like, actually, what this does is probably draws in a Azumarill. So I'm gonna make a double switch here, try to make a big brain play, and therefore try to meet the Azumarill with the Cryogonal, and then I can freeze dry it. Turns out, however, nope, they're just mashing knockoff, and you know, that is gonna get rid of my boots. Now my Snowflake is no longer wearing Tim's, and that is a horrible day. So I messed that one up a little bit, as now I'm just in danger of close combat to die. Sometimes you overpredict, and it didn't work out for me, needless to say. I just decided to go back into Garchomp because I'm like, if you just want to click knockoff, I guess that's fine, honestly. Now, instead, however, it turns out they switch into Heatran trying to get the matchup on the Cryogonal, but now this is perfect for me because now I've got Garchomp staring down a freaking lasagna frog that just hates ground. This thing will absolutely die if you just throw a little bit of ground its way. So knowing that information, I figure if they have the flying, they have the Latios, right? Levitate Latios probably switches in here expecting an earthquake. So I'm gonna predict the Latios to come in, and instead of going for the earth power, I go for the Draco Meteor. It does end up happening. They bring in the Latios. This thing's like, wow, what a good day to levitate. Nope, Draco Meteor absolutely roasts and toasts the guy, and that's gonna take care of a Latios that is an extremely scary mon against my team. So that is perfect. I get the free prediction knockout there, which is amazing. Unfortunately, however, that kind of does leave Garchomp as a little bit of a sitting duck, just because now I get that special attack drop. They can go into whatever they want, and in comes the Tornadus. So Tornadus is generally just going to be like a kind of like pivot mon with Regenerator, and I don't know exactly what it wants to do here, but what I do know is Rotom Wash can switch into just about everything. So I switched the guy in just to be a fat body, and it turns out to go for the U-turn. So yep, they are going to get that pivot off. Now they can get a matchup, but as they go into Passimian, I'm still concerned about what he thinks they're going to do with a Passimian in any matchup today, other than, I guess, you know, close combat on the the Snowflake. But as I'm looking at it here, I'm surely just going to click Will-O-Wisp. I'm like, yeah, there's no reason not to burn the thing. I go ahead and get the Wisp off, which is great. I'm very lucky on connecting on moves today. I'm not even going to lie. So this thing's just hanging out with his volleyball. They end up just going for a Drain Punch. So I mean, they don't really have a great answer for Rotom Wash, but Passimian, after getting burnt, is about the worst option. That does nothing. It doesn't heal anything back. And now I'm like, this is absolutely fine for me to just continue to whittle this thing down. Something I haven't even mentioned, actually, is that this thing is omega confusing. I'm faster with Rotom Wash here, which means it doesn't have any speed investment, means it's full bulk, which is crazy. I'm able to get a Volt Switch off first, and I get some big damage first of all, but now I'm like, I mean, they're probably just going to click something like Drain Punch again. I don't know. If they have Ice Punch, they're definitely not clicking it. So I'm just going to go into Garchomp, and then I can outspeed it, and then I can knock it out. So Chomp comes in. First of all, also, they go for the knockoff. It does get rid of my choice specs, but honestly, sometimes when the specs gets knocked off this thing, I kind of enjoy it. Now I'm like, hey, cool, I can switch moves. Well, I'm not going to do nearly as much damage. I at least have the luxury of now clicking different moves. So I'm going to be faster. I can just go for an Earth Power here. I am still concerned about the Azumarill coming in, but since they didn't do it last time, I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to go for it. They do stay in with the Passimian, and that's going to be able to take care of it. So down goes Buddy with his Beach Ball, and now that does open the door for revenge switching, and the freaking Easter Bunny is here to scare my Garchomp. So As I'm looking at it, however, Azumarill, the only way it can really be scary is if they go for a belly drum here. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to bust out the Terra Steel. I've got the defensive answer. If they go for a belly drum, I'm going to be able to get off a decently powered Earth Power. It's probably not going to be great since I don't have my specs anymore, but I want to get some damage on this thing before it can get a little too out of hand with, you know, a Citrus Berry belly drum play. So I put the axe on the dome. I'm able to outspeed it, of course. I get that Earth Power off. I was kind of hoping that it was going to get it below half and get its Citrus off, but it turns out, luckily for me, they just go for the play rough anyway. They don't go for the belly drum. It does take some rough skin, and the rough skin damage actually puts it into range to activate its Citrus. So now this thing is probably a little bit frightened. Unless it has like superpower, I still have the matchup here. I can go for another Earth Power, and while it's not even doing great damage, I just basically need to whittle it down to the point where it cannot threaten me with belly drum and Aqua Jet shenanigans. So now as they go for a liquidation here, I live it with 2 because Garchomp is my bulky goat. They take another rough skin, and while this thing is in range for an Earth Power to kill it, I am of course just gonna get knocked out by an Aqua Jet. There's about a 98% chance that they click Aqua Jet here if they have the priority, and every Azumarill ever has it. So I'm like, I don't need to just waste that thing. It turns, I switch into the pert expecting the Aqua Jet, and they go for another play rough. So I could have just left it in Garchomp and gotten the knockout. The confusing ass no Aqua Jet, and then they finished me off with the Aqua Jet. So color me confused, and you know, regardless, it's fine. The Swampert was kind of a sack anyway, but that does open the door for freaking Washington to come in. If your clothes are dirty, this thing is gonna punish you for it. I can go for a Volt Switch here. There's basically nothing it can click. It goes for an Aqua Jet just before it dies, and a Volt Switch is going to take care of it. So down goes the Azumarill. Crazy-ass egg-shaped bunny is not going to be belly drumming today, and that feels nice. So, bad thing is, while I do knock it out with the Volt Switch, of course, that has to force me to go into my Mon, and then they can decide a matchup. Now, since they don't have Stealth Rock up, I'm feeling pretty good about the fact that I might be able to get Chomp back in and get something going. I do decide to just bring in Clefable, because this team is full of curveballs. And honestly, while I do want to save, I do want to try to get the knockout on this Heatran with the Garchomp, I have 2 options here. Either I could go for a Focus Punch, or I go for the Trick and give it a Choice Band. I decided to go for the safe option, which is the Trick. Now, they do set up the late game Stealth Rock, which is unfortunate for our buddy Garchomp, who's hanging on at 2 HP back there. But as I get this thing a Choice Band, which it is not going to enjoy, that is perfect for me, because now it makes this thing a whole lot more predictable. So I take its leftovers, which is great. I figure they probably just go for something like a Lava Plume here. And once again, Rotom Wash proving that this thing just has such a great matchup here that I'm pretty much free to just go into the Rotom Wash. Honestly, the plan is this. I go Rotom here. I can threaten it with a Hydro Pump, but I really want to get in Cryogonal to Rapid Spin away those Stealth Rocks that they set. So they do go for the Lava Plume there. Gonna do a little bit of chip, but I am still feeling healthy enough to be threatening. And honestly, at this situation, as they have 3 Mons left, they have the Tornadus, they have a Crocodile, and then the Heatran. Honestly, the main thing in my mind is that they have a defensive Terra Steel. Now, as I go for the Hydro Pump, it is able to live it with like 1 HP somehow. And this puts me in a position where I almost have an opportunity here, right? So, first of all, they just continue to fire off a Lava Plume, and they're probably just leaving this thing in to be sacked at this point. But I honestly feel like if I can go for a Thunder Wave and leave this thing on the field, I can bring in Cryogonal against it and then have a great matchup against the rest of their squad with a little bit of help. So I go for the Thunder Wave. First of all, I mean, just to paralyze it would be nice, but I don't want to kill it. I want to leave this thing on the field because Cryogonal is going to be faster and it's in range to be killed via Rapid Spin. And then if I can get a Rapid Spin off, I'll get a speed boost from that. I'll then be faster than both of their final Mons and be able to get off super effective hits on both of them. So I go for the Thunder Wave this time. It does connect. Doesn't really matter. They do end up just going for another Lava Plume that is finally going to take care of Rotom. And while I could have easily knocked this thing out, now I'm in a much better position because a Rapid Spin play is exactly what I need here. I need to get rid of the Stealth Rock because not only do I have Garchomp with 2 HP back there, but I also have Ribombee who needs to retain its Focus Sash. But not only that, as I get the spin off, it can take care of the Heatran, and with that speed boost, I'm now faster than Tornadus and a Crocodile, which is sick. I do get flame bodied because I make some contact with it, which is annoying. Nothing like getting your snowflake burnt. But honestly, I'm still feeling like that's a great spot. Even though I probably don't get a knockout on something like the Crocodile, the chip is nice, and just that Rapid Spin in general is something that's a good insurance policy to maintain Ribombee's Focus Sash. So first of all, they end up going into the Crocodile, and this is fine. They do still have a Terra, so I'm kind of afraid. But I'm just going to click the Freeze Dry anyway. I'm at +1 speed, and they outspeed. They go for a knockoff, and that is going to take care of me. I didn't have an item anyway, but that's going to knock out Cryogonal, and that is kind of not great, because now that gets this thing a Moxie boost, and here's the thing. I've said it before, I often will go into the highlight mod just as a try to get this thing to do as much as possible. I immediately realized, yeah, the thing's Choice Scarf. It's going to be faster anyway, and as much as I would have loved to get a Surf Off on the guy, a knockoff is going to do it. They do take some Rough Skin, and while it doesn't really matter that much, Garchomp wasn't going to do anything really. They just stay in and kill me with a knockoff. So, I almost had a Surf on the Crocodile, but it's fine. I've got 2 Mons left, and knowing that they're Choice Scarfed into the knockoff here, guess who's in a great spot? Freaking Clefable. Now, of course, this is the one Clefable that's like the least scary thing ever because I'm a physical attacker one. Shout out to this Clefable. If you haven't seen the Clefable video, I definitely recommend checking it out. But they end up going for the Terra here. It turned out to be just Terra Dark, which is honestly kind of a sigh of relief here, because they're basically just clicking that to have bigger damage on the knockoff. But I'm totally fine with that. That's gonna do basically nothing. We are thick as hell out here. I'm max HP. I'm able to take that no problem, and I get a Play Rough off, and even without my Choice Band, they just got rid of my leftover. That's gonna be able to knock out the Krook, and that is incredibly satisfying that actually still got the kill there. I'm telling you, physical Clefable is the truth. No one sees it coming. So final mon gonna be that Tornadus, and as they go for a taunt here, I have no interest in not just going for damage. I'm gonna proceed to Play Rough, and honestly, the Clefable might just be able to bring it home for us. I get some pretty decent damage there with the Play Rough. I get an attack drop that doesn't really matter, but this thing's over here with its weird, I don't like how they put that, what is that red bead on his weird area? I don't know. I go for another Play Rough. It doesn't quite knock it out, but it puts it in range for one more to be able to finish the job here, and Clefable is able to bring it home for us. So the U-turn is the only thing they could click. They missed a Bleak Windstorm, which is great. And one more Play Rough is going to be able to do it, and that there is the old end of the match. So that was kind of just a weird one, and while I misplay with the Garchomp burst, the clearly just Choice Scarf Crocodile, it's fine. Everything's fine. Clefable's here in safe. So that is going to do it for game number 2, but I got one more little bonus match for you because we're having a fun time with this team. So look, if you enjoy these types of videos still, I really do appreciate you. I'm going to continue to make them until, Pokemon Champions comes out. And while Scarlet and Violet is stale at this point, especially with ZA out, I'm still going to just be playing these turn-based matches. So hopefully you guys are still watching. And as we're going up against a team here, first of all, I have a team switch up, but they have a team that does not really look great for mine, considering they've got Sand, I've got Sun, and it's gonna get crazy. So let's go ahead and get into it. So this team that I'm working with struggles immensely with teams that can change weather out of Sun, and as they lead off with the Tyranitar, we're gonna have to deal with Sand. So that's gonna be kind of the battle within the battle, is maintaining the weather war here. So as I lead off with the Lycanroc though, they lead Tyranitar. This is perfect. As much as I want to close combat the thing, I figure surely they switch, right? No way they're gonna let me just knock this thing out turn 1 with a close combat. And as I go for Stealth Rock, they stay in. So, they go for a low kick, which is something I had no idea any Tyranitar has ever used. I'm like, please just stay in and let me close combat you this time. I almost had his ass. I should have CC'd and I wasted it. I blew it. Now as I go for the close combat this time, they end up switching into the Gliscor. What's worse is that their low kick didn't even bring me to my Focus Sash, which is just worthless for me. I'm like, damn it, now I'm at 38. So it's like I'm not at a great position to click Endeavor on stuff. It's still nice, but 1 HP is better. Anyways, Gliscor comes in. It can now get its Toxic Orb, and this thing is gonna be a bit of a problem to the team. The only answer I really have to a Gliscor is Terra Blast Ice from my freaking Sandy Shock. So I figure this thing probably just sets up Stealth Rock here. I'm gonna immediately just go into the Torkoal. I figured, honestly, the one way I can get around this match is trying to get my Sun up early, and then I can build momentum with switching immediately into things like the Tropius, who can, first of all, enjoy the sun, and it probably just draws in the Tyranitar to change the weather over, but by then, I have a good matchup on Tyranitar anyway. So that's the plan. They end up going for the knockoff, does get rid of my Heat Rock, which is fine, I guess. I'm just going to immediately go into the Bananasaur, and look, this Tropius, this thing is tough to get going. I obviously can switch in on a nice little Earthquake there, so I have the momentum on my side, and as they probably just want to eliminate this Sun. So, knowing that Tyranitar likely switches in here to get rid of that, I can go for a free substitute. And this Tropius, it needs all the help it can get. Also, if you're interested in seeing this thing in action, go check out the Tropius video. This thing is really fun. It's honestly, I'm gonna keep it a bug. It's ass. It is very hard to get going because Tropius is such a bad Pokemon. But they go into the Tyranitar like I expect. It gets the Sand up. As I go for the substitute here, I'm basically just going off of vibes alone. I'm like, well, I kind of got the matchup that I wanted. And while I don't have my Sun up, it's still fine. This thing is a Harvest set. It's not Chlorophyll or anything. So I can go for a Dragon Dance. I am faster naturally, which is great. And now I kind of get to see what this Tyranitar has in terms of coverage or what it's going to do to the substitute here. So I essentially banked off the fact that with a free Dragon Dance, I can hopefully, get the upper hand here. They go for the Rock Slide. It does connect, and that's definitely, of course, going to be able to break the sub. So knowing that Rock Slide is kind of the thing that they want to click here, a lot of the time this Tropius relies on pure RNG to help it out, right? So I'm like, maybe I can go for another sub here. If they miss a Rock Slide, that would be amazing. But what it also does is it gets me closer to my harvest range. Knocks me down to 69, first of all. Nice. But I go for that sub just to play it safe, see what happens. They go for another Rock Slide. They don't miss. And unfortunately for me, that puts me a little bit back against the wall here because I've invested a lot at this point in getting this Tropius going. So here's at least what went through my head at this point. I can go for the Terra Ground and click Substitute again because knowing that I'm faster, I can get off the Substitute, but not only would the Terra Ground potentially allow my Substitute to not be broken by a Rock Slide, I also then am not going to be affected by the Sandstorm. I'm going to be in Lychee Berry range. A Rock Slide miss would be fantastic. I had no idea of Calcs, but maybe, just maybe, the resisted hit allows my Substitute to not be broken via Rock Slide. So that is the game plan. I go ahead, I get my Lychee Berry, which is sick. That's going to go ahead and boost my attack even further. I'm now at +2 attack on the thing, which is just about as good as you can get on the guy. But I connect on another Rock Slide, and unfortunately for me, that is still going to be able to break the damn Substitute. So, it was probably not worth it to invest this much, especially going for the Terra there. But I was like, look, I got this far. I had a Dragon Dance up. I might as well. Now, I can just click an Earthquake, though. It's going to be Stab. I have two attack boosts that should be able to knock out the T-Tar, and I can still end this matchup on top, even though I won't be able to, proceed to sweep things. I'll at least take care of the Tyranitar. However, they take this opportunity to switch into freaking Gliscor at the worst possible time for me because now I can't really touch that thing with an Earthquake, and the only other damage I have is Fly. So luckily, though, I do at least harvest another Lychee Berry. Now, that's going to get me to +3 attack. And as much as I'm like, hell yeah, I can get this thing with a Fly, Gliscor is one of the Pokemon that really stops Fly in its track. The idea behind this set is to be able to harvest a Lychee Berry in the sky here on the turn that I go up. But knowing that every Gliscor ever has freaking Protect, it can just protect my my turn where I come down on it. So it heals itself back to full. I'm waiting in the air here. I do not get the harvest. And as I get the Fly off, they don't protect, which is kind of cool. I don't have enough damage to kill it, but I at least get it off, which is kind of better than nothing. So they finish me with another Earthquake. Down goes the Tropius. That's about the most awkward situation. And you can see the absolute trenches I go through, or I went through to get that Tropius to get enough to go in for a video for it. So it wasn't its day, but that's fine. It's now going to allow me to go into Revenge Switch. And look, things are still fine. I lost the Tropius, but hey, that thing wasn't going to do much anyway. So now as I go into the Garchomp, this thing probably loves to stay in here because they're like, what is Garchomp going to do? Boom, Surf. Sometimes you just got to click Surf on the Chomp and just confuse the hell out of people. Yep, this ground dragon does in fact be surfing. So, that takes care of Gliscor, which is always a sight for sore eyes. Seeing that thing go away. As a competitive Pokemon player, it doesn't get much better than that. So now as they bring in the Feraligatr, this thing's a bit of a problem. And I am like, okay, I'm locked into Surf, so obviously I have to switch. What I'm going to decide to do, though, is bring in the Torkoal. Now, surely this thing clicks Dragon Dance, but with the Sun up, I should be able to take one attack from this thing. That Sun being able to weaken a Liquidation is going to be amazing. And the weather wars are weathering. So they do get that Dragon Dance off. I'm going to immediately try to Wisp the thing because if I can get a Wisp off, then it's honestly just immediately not scary. They go for a second Dragon Dance here, just knowing that they're not going to have the damage to knock me out. And I'm like, please Will-O-Wisp, do not Will-O-Miss. We do connect on it, so thank God on that. It is going to be able to burn the thing. While it does have 2 Dragon Dances, that is just going to make it so that I am not afraid at all of it, really. So that feels great. That feels amazing to see a burnt Gator. And what would feel much better, however, is if I had the Solar Beam coverage on this damn Torkoal. So after a lot of thinking, I decide I have to stay in here. There's really I can't really afford to switch in anything to die here. So I'm like, I'm just going to Lava Plume it and just get some more chip here. And honestly, I kind of at this point just need Torkoal to die. While I could still enjoy the Sun with the Executor, it's feeling like I honestly probably just don't really even need it. They go for Liquidation after multiple Dragon Dances and I still live. Because Torkoal just does not die. If this thing had Solar Beam, this Feraligatr would have had a far worse time, but luckily for them, I don't have it. So seeing that Torkoal lived that, honestly, I pivot a little bit. I decide now, I'm like, you know what? I can maintain that. What I can do here is knowing that they're definitely not going to go for like an Ice Punch, I can switch into the Garchomp because they're going to go for another liquidation, and in the sun, even with burn, it's not going to do anything. I'm able to live that easily. I can then get a rough skin off on the thing, and as the sun goes away, that's fine. I was honestly hoping that the combination of rough skin and the burn was going to knock it out, and it appears my calculations were in fact incorrect. So I'm forced to, I don't really want to lose the Chomp at this point. It feels like late game Garchomp could be really nice. It's fast. Earth Power is going to be really good against things like their Iron Hand. So I swap back into the Torkoal, and as they do go for the Ice Punch here, that is going to be enough to take care of me. So I probably, honestly looking at it, shouldn't have gone Torkoal because that's going to be my last son of the game. And Executor is obviously going to be the one that wants to take advantage of that, but now with that, they can just reset it to Sand. So I'm kind of at a spot where like nothing really wanted to switch in. I need to maintain things like Sandy Shocks again for like Iron Hands, and it's still good on Tyranitar. So at this point, they're obviously just gonna go into the freaking Reptar to reset the sun to Sand. However, Faceplant is the kind of guy who's here to party. You can just tell by the vibe of this dude. He's here to party. Bro does not care what the weather is. Now, I am in danger of a crunch. However, I honestly, I'm not gonna lie. I probably messed up at this point. I shouldn't have gotten rid of my weather setter. I did freaking Tyranitar, ruined my day. I just clicked Solar Beam here, just for the vibes, thinking maybe like if it has crunch, I'm screwed anyway. So I go for the Solar Beam without the sun up, and it turns out they just switch into the Emboar. It reveals probably Tyranitar doesn't have much to hit me with there, so I'm like, hey, that's cool. I'm just gonna go ahead and just charge up in the sand here and just stare down the most menacing boar ever, who can surely just Flare Blitz me. As they go for a Heat Crash though, that doesn't do it. Heat Crash is a move that I'm not even gonna lie, I had to look that up like as that happened. I'm like, what the hell was that? I get the Solar Beam off, which is fine, but Heat Crash is a move that is based off of more power the heavier you are. So like, I don't know how heavy is Emboar. Is there a reason to ever use Heat Crash? I don't know, but it allows me to stay alive there, and like now I can go ahead and maybe get off a Psychic. Sadly, however, it is still faster without my Chlorophyll, and Heat Crash is going to do it. So, you know, damn it. I did get Heat Crashed to death, which I thought maybe I had a little bit of life in me there for a minute, and but no. Down goes Executor. Now look, the gravity of the situation in terms of having lost my Torkoal to reset Sun is that now I realize, you know, I'm down to 3 Mons left, and their huge glaring problem is friggin' Sand Rush Excadrill. That thing with the doubled speed is going to be a huge problem being faster than everything. So, you know, that's what I'm gonna have to deal with. Anyway, I can go into the Sandy Shocks now, and with the Photosynthesis speed, I am incredibly quick, not faster than Sand Rush Excadrill. Now, as I just go for the Earth Power, they actually end up bringing in the Excadrill. So I'm like, okay, Air Balloon, it's gonna float above it. I am gonna be in trouble. But it does not have the Air Balloon, and they just go down. So, you know, the main thing that I was worried about ends up being a sack switch for some reason, and you know, that's pretty nice. The only thing that I had that could have taken an attack from it would have been potentially Garchomp, as long as it didn't have a Swords Dance up, but I will absolutely take that knockout for free. Now, as they go back into the Emboar, I can just finish that with a T-Bolt. So likely just a misplay on their end. I don't know if they thought they had Air Balloon and didn't, but that's going to help us out a whole lot in this late game. And it's actually not over yet. They still got some pretty big threats. They're down to 2 Mons left. They do still have a full health Iron Hands. And not only that, but the main thing I'm worried about is that now they have a defensive Terra that they can still use. So this thing's going to get a Quark Drive, going to boost its attack. That makes this thing able to essentially knock everything out in one hit that I've got left. But luckily, it's still slow. So they do go for the Fake Out here just to get a little bit of chip damage for the road. And the good thing is I can still land an Earth Power. That's going to help me out. Even if I don't get a knockout, all I need is some chip on big old Tubby Boy here. So they are going to end up going for the Terra. Now I'm fearing Terra Flying, but luckily it's just going to be Terra Fighting. That is going to be able to boost up things like Drain Punch. But I figure if they have the Ice Punch, they probably go for it here. And this game's going to come right down to it. So I get off the Earth Power. It's going to bring it down to half, which is honestly all you can expect here. Now they do just click the Drain Punch, unfortunately for me. And that's going to be able to not only knock me out, but then they get a ton of health back. So I'm like, while I was shaking in my boots because of damaged Excadrill, now I'm afraid of freaking big palms, and now he's got a fist on his head. Things looking menacing. I've got only 2 Mons left. Now, the plan is this. I know that Garchomp will not be able to get a knockout from this range with an Earth Power. At least I'm imagining, right? So what I can do is I can first go into Lycanroc, and I can click Endeavor. Now, while I have 36 HP, that's a lot for me, not a lot for big old boy here. Now, that brings it down into red, and while they do get to finish me off with a Drain Punch, this thing having minuscule HP, ends up helping it out most of the time because they don't get a lot of health back there. And now it all comes down to if Garchomp can clean the game up for us. We're close to timer. All I've got left is a chompy boy with some glasses on. And I have to lock myself into Earth Power because of the fact that then their final mon in the back is Tyranitar, who is still healthy, mind you. So I can just go for the Earth Power here. It is gonna barely just be enough damage to knock it out. And I don't think the critical hit mattered there. Specs, stab, Earth Power should have been still enough. Down goes the hands. And now we've got ourselves in a good old-fashioned 1v1 against the Tyranitar. I'm locked into my super effective hit. However, since this thing comes in, activates its Sandstream, it's going to get that Sandstorm up. Being rock type, it now benefits from that 50% boost on the special defensive side. So as I go for an Earth Power here, I know it's not going to kill. Now, it almost does, but I get a critical hit. Again, 2 crits in a row. I also get a Spadef drop, doesn't matter, but the hacks is all over the place. Now, as I go for an Assurance, I'm able to live because the Garchomp is thick as hell, and then the Rough Skin is going to clean up the game for us. So that was, I'm not going to lie, that was a whirlwind of an ending there. The Rough Skin chip being able to finish the game is honestly hilarious. Shout out to Buddy and his non-moisturized ass sandpaper skin. That really helped, really coming in clutch there. So thank you guys very much for watching. That's going to be the end of the video. I really appreciate the support on these, and I will catch you guys next time. Peace out.